My family humiliated me at my brother's party. This is petty, Mom hissed. I kept silence. Then canceled vendors and walked off with their check. I drove 7 hours for my brother's engagement celebration. My seat was taken by his fiance's dog sitter. My mother muttered, "You don't have to be here." I got into my car, opened my banking app, and canceled the event deposit. At 9:04 p.m., my father texted, "Why did the venue ask us to leave?" This made me upset. And at that point, I was thinking about how selfish they were. Even terrible was the shame. When I realized the folks surrounding me had heard what she said, I felt a rush of heat up my neck. They weren't even pretending not to hear. "You don't need to be here." It was not a proposal. It was a dismissal. And it hit harder than she probably intended. Because it wasn't just about the party. It was about every time I was shoved to the side to make place for Leo, Dad's ego, or my mother's perception of looks. I had driven 7 hours through heat, construction zones, and heavy traffic to see my brother. I didn't have the time to spare. I absolutely did not have the money. But I had handed them $3,000, like everyone else, with no questions asked, since I assumed it was what relatives did. I even left a letter with the transfer. "I'm happy for you, brother. Let's have a great celebration." That is what I had written. I parked 2 streets over because their driveway and the surrounding road were jam-packed with luxury rentals and personalized plates. Leo always had a flair for the dramatic. When I stepped inside, I could tell the vibe was off. It was not warm. It wasn't joyful. It felt organized and produced, like a reality show set. People gazed at me, but no one said anything. I approached the tables, seeking for place cards with family names. I circled once and then again. "No, Kenny. There's no extra seat." My name was nowhere to be found, so I asked, "Where are the servers?" A nice young man informed me that all of the seats were taken. I pointed to the open chair that should have been mine at the end, near my father. He paused. Then he said, "Oh, that's Chloe's dog sitter." I simply stared at him. This was not a mistake. This was deliberate. My mother then came over. She did not inquire about the drive, did not hug me, didn't even smile. I just dropped the line like it was no big thing. "You don't need to be here." I was standing 3 feet from the patio entrance and I could see people were looking. One woman standing next to the hors d'oeuvres table averted her gaze swiftly. Someone else did smirk. That's when I understood they had made me an extra. The out-of-town relative who may be overlooked for the sake of appearances. The brother who lacked the polish required to complement the rest of the decor. So I left. I strolled back to my car without saying anything, sat behind the wheel and stared at the dashboard for a whole minute. Then I unlocked my phone, navigated to the banking app, and reviewed the transaction. I sent a $3,000 deposit for this circus. I choose cancel. It would take a few days to hit, but I didn't mind. I wanted the process to begin. At exactly 9:04 p.m., my father sent me a text message. "Why are we leaving the party?" Not "Where are you?" Not "Is everything all right?" Not even a basic comeback. Just a demand. Like if I had broken something. I looked at the message and something snapped in me. It was not wrath. Not yet. It was something colder. I hadn't felt this clarity in a long time. I realized I'd been funding this delusion. Their polished, picture-perfect life, and I was the only one who still believed I had to earn my position there. I did not respond. I set my phone to Do Not Disturb, backed out of the driveway, and drove off into the night. I wasn't sure where I was going yet, but I knew I wasn't finished. They assumed I was the easy one, the silent one, the one who always took the blow. They were about to find out I was done playing that part. I did not go far. I just parked in a dark area of a Target parking lot several miles away. The engine is off, and the windows are cracked. It was quiet enough to ponder, and I needed a second to figure out what would happen next. But I already knew the answer. I opened the event invoice that my mother had sent me 2 months before. It mentioned everything: catering, furniture rental, floral design, and a 6-piece string quartet. Total cost, $26,400, divided among 9 persons. They had calculated it to the cent. My portion was $2,933.33, but I rounded it up to $3,000 before sending it. I scrolled through the message chain. That's when I spotted something unusual. My name still appeared on the vendor paperwork. They'd used my billing information for the dessert company, the florist, and a champagne rental service that I couldn't remember signing up for. My deposit was not simply a gift. It was a deposit. Mine, under my name, with my card. I called the dessert establishment first. I told them I needed to put a hold on the payment due to a family issue. They were very understanding. They said they wouldn't charge the remaining amount unless I gave the go-ahead. Then comes the floral company. Same thing. It helped since I still had receipts and had spoken to them directly once or twice. I spent the next few hours mailing cancellation emails. Nothing very dramatic. Just enough to cause delays, costs, or block reimbursements. I didn't intend to spoil the entire party. Not yet. I simply wanted them to feel the crack in the wall, a little strain in their ideal night. By 11 p.m., I had set everything into motion. Then I drove across town to stay at my friend Tyler's house. He resided in a little guest house behind a larger property and always had a spot available. He didn't ask many questions. He simply handed me a spare blanket, nodded toward the couch, and offered me a beer. I set my phone to do not disturb mode before I even lay down. I awoke the next morning to mayhem and 21 missed calls. Texts from my father, mother, aunt, Leo, and even Chloe. The tone was rapidly increasing. I disregarded them all. Tyler and I were drinking coffee outside around 10 a.m. when a black SUV pulled into the gravel driveway. It was my parents. They did not knock. They did not wait. They stormed through the back gate as if they owned it. My mom was outraged. My father was holding his phone as if it were evidence. "You've humiliated us," he stated. "No," he replied. "You humiliated me." I just returned the favor. They resorted to accusations, guilt trips, and the works. How dare I ruin Leo's night? How petty I was for storming out. I just let them talk. And after they were finished, I said just one sentence. "You now owe me $8,800. My father blinked as if he hadn't heard me. "You heard me. I put $3,000 down under my name. I froze the rest of the vendors tied to that payment. You're going to cover those losses, or those vendors can come after you since you all benefited from a service I paid for." Chloe arrived a few minutes later, dressed as if she hadn't slept and still wearing party clothes. She attempted to join in. I did not glance at her. Tyler stood awkwardly near the steps, but I could see he was enjoying the performance. There were no decent spins. There is no way for them to misinterpret this. For once, I had leverage. "I'm done being treated like a +1 in my own family." I responded, "You want a clean party? Pay for it." I informed them that I would be staying 2 more nights in town. If they wanted to shout, negotiate, or throw another tantrum, they could do so after I left. They didn't leave immediately. My father stood with his arms crossed, as if I were a contractor who had skipped out on drywall work. My mother began pacing in short, stiff lines next to Tyler's grill, utterly disregarding the fact that we were guests in someone else's home. She was talking quickly, not to me, but to the air, saying things like, "You're making a scene. This is petty." Leo's night was ruined. As if she could turn the circumstance into something more appealing. "You've humiliated us," my father stated once more, as if repeating it would make it my fault. "No," I replied. "You humiliated me. You just didn't think I'd respond." They despised that. I despised the fact that I couldn't yell, cry, or urge anyone to listen to my side of the story. I was relaxed, too calm. That's when they realized they weren't going to regain control. Chloe appeared midway through, still dressed in the same clothes as the night before, but with a hoodie wrapped over it in such a way that she blended in. She took a mild approach, saying how the whole affair had been blown out of proportion. I asked her a question. "You gave my seat to your dog sitter?" She didn't respond straight away, simply shifted her gaze to the ground. "I didn't know." There wasn't room for you, she finally said. So the dog sitter was a higher priority. More silence. Tyler stayed to the side, leaning against the back stairs, pretending he was somewhere else. But he didn't interrupt, which I appreciated. My mother stepped in again, her voice tight. This is not how families treat each other. I laughed once, not because anything was hilarious, but because that statement reminded me of a game show called Gaslight Me More. Mom, she began as I glanced at her. Family doesn't tell their son he doesn't have to be there. Family doesn't let a stranger take his spot at the table. Family doesn't call after the damage is done to act shocked when he walks out. I then provided them the number. You owe me $8,800. They were staring. I detailed everything in detail. The vendors, the deposits, the contracts, my name, billing information, and my credit card. I did not yell. I did not plead. I spoke as if I had had enough of playing dumb to keep the peace. They attempted to argue. Of course they did. My father inquired whether I was truly going to charge my own family. I clarified, I'm not charging anyone. I'm collecting. I paid for things you used. You want to be adults who host luxury events and make unilateral decisions? Then act like it. Pay your bills. Chloe attempted to speak again, but I cut her off. I'm not negotiating with someone who thought I was beneath the guest list. You had your moment. This is mine. They eventually ran out of arguments. My mother called me chilly. My father called me ungrateful. Chloe said nothing else. Leo did not show up. I suppose that was telling on its own. They departed not because they accepted anything, but simply because they had no leverage. They'd entered the only location where they couldn't control the story, and that terrified them. The rest of the day, I remained silent. Tyler and I grilled hamburgers, watched a movie on his projector, and scarcely discussed the situation. But before I went to bed, I put my phone off Do Not Disturb mode just long enough to see what had accumulated. Leo texted me. I didn't know about the seat. I didn't mean for that to happen. No apologies. No ownership. It's just damage control. I shut off my phone and tossed it on the table. If they wanted to regard me as an outsider, they could accept the outsider version of me. The next morning they showed up again, this time with backup. Leo was with them. Chloe too. All of them stood in Tyler's gravel driveway at 8:47 a.m. as if they were preparing to perform an intervention. But this time, I wasn't answering the door alone. They pounded on the screen door 3 times like cops with no rest between sets. Tyler was standing behind me, barefoot and holding a coffee mug, and he looked at me like, "Are you sure you want this?" But I was already headed towards the door. Leo was in front. Behind him appeared my parents and Chloe, all clothed as if they hadn't slept. Perhaps they'd all gotten together early for a strategy session on how to remedy the PR nightmare I'd become. Leo spoke first. "Can we come in?" I stood aside because I didn't want them to have the gratification of labeling me dramatic for refusing. Tyler grabbed his keys and headed out the back. He wasn't about to witness a family breakdown. We stood in the center of the living room. No chairs, no coffee, just 4 people staring at me as if they couldn't believe I wasn't apologizing. Leo began discussing misunderstandings, such as the fact that he hadn't seen the seating chart, that it was Chloe's planner, and that the entire situation had escalated faster than he expected. I cut him off. "You had 6 weeks to check the guest list. You approved the table cards. You walked past me last night and didn't say a word." He looked down and I thought he was going to admit it. But then Chloe jumped in. "This isn't about a chair." "No," he replied. "It's about the way all of you look at me like I'm the extra. The one who doesn't matter. The one who pays, shows up, shuts up, and still gets treated like a mistake." My mother's arms were folded. My father stood like a statue, jaw rigid. "Stop pretending this is new," I told you. "When I got laid off, nobody called. When I couldn't make Thanksgiving 2 years ago, you told people I was going through something. When I finally get here after a 7-hour drive, you let someone who walks your dog take my place at the table. Leo said something about trying to avoid a scene. I stared at him. You didn't want a scene? You threw a $26,000 party. You hired a violinist to play Post Malone. You had an ice sculpture of your initials. But me sitting at the family table was going to ruin the image? Chloe murmured something to my mother. My mother did not answer and continued to watch me as if I were an insect she did not want to touch. You want to talk about scenes? I asked. Let's talk about how you humiliated me in front of strangers. Let's talk about how you told me I didn't have to be there in front of guests. You didn't just exclude me, you made sure people saw it. That was when my father finally said anything. This is still your brother's moment. You're making it all about you. I laughed. I made it about me the second I canceled the deposit. I'm not paying for a party where I wasn't even welcome. He opened his mouth, but I was not finished. You owe me $8,800. I don't care how you split it. I'm not chasing vendors. I'm not covering charges. And I'm not disappearing just because it's inconvenient for you. My mother wondered if I was doing it out of spite. No, I replied. I'm doing this because for the first time in my life I finally understand that I don't owe any of you. Silence. The room became quiet after that. Nobody knew what to say. They had come. Here anticipating a winnable argument or a manageable breakdown. But I wasn't melting down. I was done. They left shortly after. Leo replied he would work it out. My father walked away without saying another thing. My mother did not look at me. Chloe was the last to depart, and she did not even close the gate behind her. That night, I packed my belongings. After one more night in town, I was leaving. No goodbyes, no calls. Allow them to sit with it. The idea was to depart early the next morning. There's no drama, no notes, simply gone. Tyler volunteered to drive me halfway and said he had some errands in the next town over. I was folding my things into my duffel bag when my phone lit up. It was an email. Subject, final payment notice for Aurora Catering. I opened it, expecting a follow-up from one of the sellers I'd previously stalled. But this one was new. It was a late-stage invoice that had somehow gotten past my screen. Due today, under my name. Total, $3,600. I read it twice. Then I called them. It turned out that my father had identified me as the key event liaison on the catering team's contract. He had never told me. They had already charged my card for the deposit many weeks ago. Now the balance was pending, and if I didn't cancel it today, they'd charge the whole amount by 5 p.m. I hung up and sat there with the phone on my lap, scarcely blinking. It wasn't all arrogance anymore. It was calculated. They did not simply take advantage of me. They expected me to ignore it, to pay up and disappear. That's when I decided to return. Not to raise a scene or to ask for anything, but because if this was the end of things, I wasn't going to leave room for misunderstanding. Tyler did not even ask questions. He simply gave me the keys to his spare car and said, "Go finish it." I drove to Leo and Chloe's residence, not the event venue, but their condo on the opposite side of town. The lights were turned on, and Chloe's car was out front. I knocked once. Chloe answered. She appeared stunned. "I'm not here for another argument," I told you. "I'm here to tell you I found the invoice. Catering, my name, my card, another $3,600. She blinked quickly, then moved back to let me in. Leo sat on the couch. He appeared to have not slept. Perhaps he finally realized what this had become. "You're using me like a bank account," I told you. "And then you pretend I'm the selfish one." He did not refute it. Chloe claimed she didn't realize I was still listed as the contact. I shut her off. "No more explanations. I'm canceling that payment too. And if they charge me, I'm sending all of you the bill. I'll take it to court if I have to." Leo eventually looked up. "You'd go that far?" I nodded. "You've left me with nothing else." But then something unexpected happened. Chloe stood up, walked to the kitchen, and returned with an envelope. She handed it to me, saying nothing. Inside was a check for $3,000. "For the deposit," she explained. "The one you already paid for." I stared at it. Part of me wondered if this was due to guilt, or if she simply wanted me out of their lives without causing legal problems. I didn't care. I took the check and said, "That leaves $5,800. Nobody spoke. I walked out. Back at Tyler's, I placed the check on the table and sat in silence for a long time. That was it. The break. Something that couldn't be undone right now. This is not a misunderstanding, not a bad night. A purposeful exploitation of me financially, emotionally, and completely. They had expected me to stay quiet. They had no idea how loud I could become when I eventually spoke. The next morning I left shortly before daybreak. The air was heavy and still. Tyler gave me a thermos of coffee and a subtle nod. I enjoyed that none of us were big on theatrical goodbyes. I took one last look at his small property before pulling out of the gravel road without saying anything. I had only been there for 3 days, but it felt like a year had passed. Or perhaps I've merely aged one. My phone began vibrating again about 20 minutes after leaving the city. I ignored the first few of calls, but the texts kept pouring. I peeked at one while I was at a fueling station from my dad. "We need to talk." From my mother. "Come by the house. Do not leave like this." Even Leo tried again. "Let us chat. It's just us." Everyone sounded different now. Less confident. I'm not sure I'd just fall back in line. I didn't respond. But curiosity got the best of me. I turned the car around. When I arrived at my parents' place, they were waiting in the living room. Leo was already inside and pacing. My mother was sitting stiffly on the couch's arm. My father was standing by the fireplace, arms folded again. Chloe wasn't present this time. I did not sit down. My father started with the usual. "You've made your point." Then something about not letting things continue on, as if I was the one causing the issue. I questioned him directly. "Are you going to pay the $5,800? He did not respond at first. My mother looked over at him but saw nothing. "I'll give you $3,000, he finally announced. "That's fair." I laughed once. Not a genuine chuckle, more like disbelief. "You're offering me fairness now?" He approached me, and my mother stood up, as if she might mediate, but I raised my hand. "Number, you don't get to negotiate. Not after everything. Not after the way you made me feel in front of strangers. Not after telling me I didn't have to be there." My voice did not soar. I was not angry, I was just finished. I removed the catering invoice from my back pocket and placed it on the coffee table. "This is yours now. I've spoken to them. They're expecting payment today. You can either call them or let them come for you. I don't care either way." Leo attempted to speak up, but I cut him off too. "I've got nothing left to say to any of you." And I intended it. They didn't try to stop me as I walked out. No yelling. There were no tears. No parting shots. Just silence. The kind that feels hollow rather than serene. When I got back on the interstate, I turned my phone to mute and tucked it inside the glove box. By the time I arrived home that evening, I felt like I could breathe again. Not because everything was resolved, but because I had finally stopped allowing them to pull me underwater. There was no more group texting, no calls, nothing. And for once, it was just what I wanted. 3 days. That was all it needed to pull back the curtain and reveal what I had been hiding for years. No more favors, no more deposits, no more silence. Just peace. And I wasn't going to give it up for anyone. An update. It had been a month of stillness. No missed calls. No texts. Not even a second-hand update from a cousin. For the first time in a long time, I felt able to breathe. I had started sleeping better. I wasn't jumping for every notification. I wondered if they'd finally gotten it. Then, on Sunday afternoon, there was a knock. I checked the peephole. My stomach dropped. My parents, Leo, Chloe, standing on my porch, as if it were Thanksgiving and they were delivering pie. I opened the door halfway. "What are you doing here?" "We thought enough time had passed," my mother explained, as if a calendar could erase what they had done. Leo appeared hopeful. Chloe carried a pastel gift bag, as if she were offering serenity. Nobody grinned. They simply looked eager. I allowed them in. I wanted to know what they thought would happen. It took 5 minutes to realize nothing had changed. My father brought up the catering invoice and mentioned that he knew someone who might be able to haggle it down. My mother mentioned moving forward with family vacations. Chloe inquired if I had any wedding RSVP dates in mind. Not a single word of apology. Not a single sentence mentions the party, the money, or what they did to me in front of strangers. It was like seeing someone try to use rewind on a fire. I stood up and opened the door. "You need to leave." My mother scowled, as if I were being ridiculous. Leo merely looked puzzled. "You think a month passed and I'd forget?" was what I said. "You didn't come here to fix anything. You came to clean your conscience." Chloe tried to give me the present bag. I did not take it. "I'm not coming to the wedding," I said. "I'm not coming for the holidays. I'm done." They stood there as if they did not believe me. "I gave you every chance," I explained, "and every time you proved exactly who you are." They walked out slowly, glancing back as if I could stop them. I did not. The present bag remained unopened on the table. I threw it in the trash an hour later without even looking inside. That's the last time I opened the door for them.